What's up, guys? Welcome to another What If Wednesday. I'm Rodney, and we're here counting down all of the different things that happened in the newest episode of What If. This was episode 8, the penultimate episode. Google it if you don't know what that means. But we are one episode away from the finale, and we're going to break down all of it for you, so stick with us. I know I said last week that was my favorite episode, but as they're wrapping this show up, a lot of the stuff that I had wondered if they were going to do seems to be paying off, and it seems like the finale is going to be excellent. All of the different threads, a lot of the director's comments in articles this week have seemed to insinuate that we're going to get a lot of payoff from the abrupt episodes that ended so, I don't say horrifically, but just badly. We got a little bit of that payoff with the Doctor Strange episode where Doctor Strange Supreme pops up at the end of this episode. But there were so many things that went on in this episode. I loved the story. The What If Ultron won. It kind of threw things out of balance, and he killed off the Avengers. Tony died yet again. In the midst of that, when Thanos appears and Ultron has this moment with Thanos where he sees the Infinity Stones and catches him off guard just for a second and says, "Oh, interesting," and cuts him in half, which perfectly balanced, as all things should be. I thought it was very funny that he gets cut cleanly in half. And Ultron takes the Infinity Stones for himself. It was interesting. I know it's been off-putting for some fans to see how quickly Thanos was dispatched, but it kind of makes sense. You know, Ultron was not around, Vision was around, and they took Vision out. They had to kind of do a surprise attack on Vision to be able to attack him, and they kind of took him out of the game for a while, so he wasn't able to fight Thanos. And his answer to fighting Thanos, because he was Vision and he had compassion, was not to actually kill Thanos or fight Thanos with the stone, but was actually to destroy the stone so he wouldn't even have a chance of getting it. So the idea there, in what we know from the MCU, to me was okay, given how Vision or Ultron decided to take on Thanos and kill him. The back and forth scenes with post-apocalyptic Black Widow and Hawkeye with Clint and Natasha were really interesting. I liked the interactions where the Watcher is trying to say, "Oh, look, your answer is right there," and he's battling with this idea of not interfering, and then he's able to see it, and he's actually rooting people on. I thought that was a really cool thing. It gave him a little bit of personality. Beyond that, when Vision, I'm going to have to stop calling him Vision, when Ultron catches wind through the Infinity Stones that there is another world out there that he can somehow interact with, and then figuring out a way to interact with that world, which was something that Thanos wasn't able to do. Thanos was more preoccupied with his timeline, and it could be argued that Thanos wasn't able to see the multiverse because He Who Remains, that we discover at the end of the Loki series, had isolated our timeline from the rest of the other timelines, so he wasn't able to see what was going on. Now, maybe the Watcher was able to see what was going on in our timelines. Clearly, he was able to, because he's able to show us what's going on in the MCU, but in other ways that would have happened in other universes, not in our timeline. And so there's a lot of multiverse rules that they kind of gave us some different insights into this episode, and we're going to break those down here in just a second. But I have a video forthcoming, and I've teased it for a while, and it's going to be in the weeks after the finale of What If that we get to dive into that. But I kind of want to see what happens with this, and then make a multiverse video and maybe have to add some addendums to it once we see Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Getting back to this episode, though, I thought that Ultron getting frustrated with the Watcher for just watching all these things happen, that he has all this power, that he was in the multiverse, that he was able to see all these possibilities, and the only thing he did with that power was watch. Kind of called into question his abilities, and was really interesting in regards to Ultron having a motive for being upset and wanting to take that power from the Watcher. And now Ultron has a new goal, which is to bring balance and peace to all these other universes, so he can keep fighting his battle forever. He becomes a super villain. Was a really interesting take on it, and I'm interested to see what they do with that. I loved the reintroduction of Zola, and again, just like we've seen in previous episodes, there are things, since this show takes place in the MCU, it means that there are things in the MCU, in the live-action MCU, that we haven't seen yet, but they have been introduced in the animated version of the MCU, so it stands to reason they're out there somewhere. One of those being Arnim Zola, who I always thought was not completely gone, but they did a better job of explaining that he is analog and not digital, so he only has access to the internet when they give him access to the internet, and that also means that his computer was isolated in the Kremlin or in Siberia, wherever they found him, and he could not get out to the rest of the world. So Zola's still out there somewhere. I think that's a really cool thing. I hope they use him again in the future. I think that was really, really awesome. As Ultron and the Watcher begin to fight, I loved that they went through, not only when Ultron was fighting and going through different worlds, you got to see Xandar, you got to see Ego, you got to see all these different places, the Sovereign. And I think that showed you these big places to get you to understand that Ultron is all-powerful. He took out a Celestial, he took out the Sovereign, he took out all of these different things that seemingly were invincible, including Captain Marvel, who got taken out very, very quickly as well. It seemed like she had some power, and then all of a sudden she didn't. As the Watcher and Ultron get ready to fight, their fight scene showed you a few things multiverse-wise that we'll get to in our Easter eggs, but they're being punched through different realities, and they end up in this big fight where you get to see the Watcher in his battle garb, or he manifests that. I don't actually know how that happened, but it was really interesting to see. And then when it seems like Ultron is almost won, the Watcher retreats. And then you see him making a deal with Doctor Strange Supreme, who surprisingly was not destroyed completely, but we see that the Watcher has already maybe intervened, or maybe what we saw at the end of that episode was they were just imprisoned in their own little bubble outside of the multiverse, and that was all that was left of the world. And the Watcher is able to talk to him now. I don't know, I think we're going to get answers to that, but the Watcher actually having to say, and I loved actually getting to hear Benedict Cumberbatch's character go, oh, no, I'm going to have to hear you say it, because he would not intervene on his behalf, but now he'll intervene when his own life is at stake. And he's realizing that he made a horrible mistake by not intervening in these situations where not only the universe was going to be destroyed, which didn't seem like it was a problem to him, but that they could consider, in some sense, cross over and destroy other universes. I think that's why he let Kang, or He Who Remains, do what he did, because he was isolating his universe from being attacked in other ways. So it made sense that certain things that have already happened would have continued to happen because of the Watcher. Getting to some of those Easter eggs there was a moment as they're popping through the multiverse, and as Ultron is punching the Watcher, that you get to see Skrulls, you get to see some other universes and different people in those universes that you hadn't seen in a while, and just pop-ups of different characters. There were very few beats from old movies in this one that you could say, oh, that was from this movie, that was from that movie, because it all happened so quickly. But you got to see the Guardians of the Galaxy fighting on the Sovereign. You got to see Korg on the planet with the Grandmaster, and so on Sakaar, and you got to see some of those different characters as Ultron punches the Watcher through different universes. There is one time where Ultron is very, very large, and you see his head, and he's looks like he's devouring the skyline. That scene gave me Galactus vibes, and I thought it was really cool. It was a really small way for them to maybe make a nod to someone like Galactus, where he could be small like Ultron was, but then he could also be very, very large. And so just a little hint of, hey, here's a way you could do this. And they kind of teased it. As they get punched into a different version of New York City, in Times Square, you get to see up on the screen Steve Rogers getting inaugurated as President of the United States of America. That was really, really cool. And then as Natasha and Clint are fighting the Ultrons early on, instead of Natasha falling to her death, as we saw in Endgame, Clint is the one that lets go and has to fall and sacrifice himself. And so you got that flip side. Also, because Ultron won, there was no need for Infinity War because Thanos was killed early on. So Natasha and Clint did not have to go to Vormir, and Natasha did not have to sacrifice herself for the Soul Stone. So that's why a lot of those things happened the way they did, because Ultron won and there was no need for Thanos to come around the way he did to collect the stones or do the things that he did, because the Time Stone was in a different place, the Soul Stone was in a different place, the Mind Stone was in a different place, the Space Stone was in a different place, because all those things did not happen like they did in our version of the MCU. Other than that, there was a lot of, I'm sure there are a lot of other little details, but the one big Easter egg to me that might go unnoticed was a multiverse rule. We've seen how people can teleport in the MCU when Scarlet Witch or Agatha disappear. You see the residue of their magic. So you see red magic or you see purple magic. When Thanos is using the Space Stone, the portal opens up and it's blue, and they go through it. When he's using the Power Stone, it's purple. When Doctor Strange is going from one place to another, there is the orange portal that they go through, that their sling ring makes. And that portal could take them anywhere, but theoretically, it takes them from places like from dimension to dimension. So places within our reality that are always there. So like if this is one reality, the mirror dimension is always there. The quantum realm is always there, even though the quantum realm can go to other places. But we see the Watcher looking at other realities in this hallway that has prisms, which I think is a really good metaphor, especially if you connect it with things like the line that you see centering around He Who Remains castle at the end of Loki. You see this, it looks like light. The multiverse would be like light hitting that prism and breaking off into different things. The multiverse rule that you see is when they are portaling or traveling between dimensions, the portal looks like a prism. They like they're breaking through a prism, similar to the jump points in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where they're going through different hexagon-shaped things. So it made me happy that they chose some other different type of transportation method or some kind of different portal to show that they were going from one universe to another. Rather than something that we'd seen before, so it was kind of ambiguous. They actually gave you, this is they busted through like it was a pane of glass, but it was prisms, and you got to see them do that. I think that's going to pop up again in the future, and I think there's some things that were laid as groundwork here that when they pop up in movies, in live action movies, we will be able to say, oh, I've seen that before, even though it will look like a new rule in the movies. Those of you who have watched What If will know, oh, we've seen that before, and it's easy to explain. It might even be something that pops up in another TV show or movie that ends up becoming a twist at the end of that show that those of us that have watched What If or other shows will actually know early on, and it becomes an early Easter egg for us, but it becomes a twist for somebody who hasn't ever seen that yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play all that off and how they use it, but we're getting multiverse rules as they move along, and they're teaching us different things. I think this finale is going to be fantastic. It's going to tie together all these different things, Party Thor, Captain Carter, all these different storylines, the Killmonger storyline. We're going to get a lot of different pieces here. And the last episode, because we haven't gotten it yet, involves Gamora becoming the Mad Titan. And so what that looks like and how that happens is anybody's guess, but it looks like all of this is going to tie together somehow. I'm really, really excited to see how it does it. Tell us what you guys saw. There's probably a ton of other Easter eggs that an eagle-eyed fan who has paused and gone through these things frame by frame could see. But I picked out some of my favorites, and I hoped you liked them as well. Let us know what you think in the comments. As always, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and then share this video all across the multiverse. We'll see you next time when the next video drops. Thanks.